Ladies and gentlemen, it is finally here. It is the 12th of February 2025, and it has just hit 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. The National Second Division, the Australian Championship, it is finally here, and I am excited. Kind of. Hello, guys, it's me, Alex from the backfourpod, and yes, I am excited for the Australian Championship announcement, and I'll explain why in this video. So we're going to be covering over the entire announcement from Football Australia regarding the new Australian Championship, what the new format is going to look like, when it's going to be released, and all the information that we have as of right now. So yeah, let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into it. Now, just to preface before we start that everything I do say right now is going to be what we've been told from the Football Australia social media accounts, as well as the Australian Championship social media accounts, media releases, official statements, as well as what we saw on the actual video of the announcement. So with that all out the way, let's get straight into what we've known so far. Scheduled to kick off in October 2025, the Australian Championship's inaugural season will feature 16 NPL-based clubs, including the 8 founding members as well as 8 additional NPL clubs, one from each major NPL region in the country. They'll make up 16 teams that will play a Champions League group-style format to determine the overall winner of the Australian Championship come the end of the season. Now, we've been told by Football Australia that the aim of this whole process is to connect the more state-based NPL clubs to the A-League and hopefully get a full national structure where clubs are able to go up and down, promotion relegation style, and local clubs are going to have a future pathway to success. Now, what we're going to do in this video is just read off the official statements of what we have so far, and I'm sort of just going to give my opinions as to whether or not I think it's good so far. Obviously, it's still early days with the release, but I want to see some promising signs going into what we're going to be expecting in October, so let's just get to the official statements and we'll go from there. Now, first off, let's get into the one piece of information that we do have so far, that being the 8 founding clubs. One thing to mention is that all clubs from the founding members are from Victoria and New South Wales. That does make sense given that majority of the football fan base in Australia does come from those 2 states, as well as majority of the money from NPL teams are mostly held in those states. But let's get into the founding 8 clubs. Your founding 8 clubs are going to be Apia Leichhardt, Avondale FC, Marconi Stallions, Preston Lions, South Melbourne, Sydney Olympic, Sydney United, and Wollongong Wolves. Now, personally, I like these 8 picks. I think they're a strong core group of teams. Obviously, you have some very good historical sides, such as your Sydney Olympics, Wollongong Wolves, South Melbournes. There are plenty of sides there that have been around for a long, long time, including up-and-coming clubs like Avondale, who were only formed in 2009. It's a really good mix, I think, and I think it's going to be promising going into what is going to be the inaugural year of the competition. The competition format will include a group stage, 4 groups of 4 teams playing home and away matches, with the top 2 in each group qualifying for the elimination final series, culminating in the inaugural Australian Championship final in early December. Designed to deliver competitive integrity, excitement, and commercial appeal, the Australian Championship will celebrate Australian football's authenticity, ambition, and connection while engaging fans nationwide. Now, regarding the overall structure, obviously a lot of us were hoping for a just set league format. It's a bit too early for that though, and with it being 16 teams included, I am happy with that because it does just give me that feeling that we are looking to get to a league format as soon as possible, and with it being home and away for the actual group stage formats, it does give me that sort of belief that even with clubs featuring from Tasmania and Western Australia and South Australia and Queensland, that we are going to be able to work out these logistics as to whether or not these teams are going to be able to do full home and away fixtures for an entire league season. It's a good start, but I want to get onto some of those corporate buzzwords that were sort of thrown around in that second paragraph. Now, they say they want to represent Australian football's authenticity and connect with fans and ambition and all these kinds of words, competitive integrity, yada yada. I want to know how they plan to do that though. Now, we do know from previous experience that Football Australia are not exactly too keen on having, ethnic connections to a lot of their top flight clubs. And with reports that there are a lot of these founding clubs that are looking to possibly feature more, sort of ethnic symbolism. given that Preston Lions has even put forward a motion to rename their team to Preston Macedonia, and you're even seeing stuff like Adelaide City, which is probably the biggest club out of the South Australian NPL, adding the Italian flag back to their club crest when previously they weren't allowed to. Marconi also changing their badge recently. It's a weird time for Australian football where we're sort of seeing a lot of NPL clubs reverting back to that old sort of heritage and going back to their roots with a lot of that sort of ethnic symbolism. Now, while I really enjoy that, I'm interested to see how that is going to work at a national stage. Obviously, Football West haven't been fans of it in the Football Australia haven't been fans of it in the past. So I am interested to see if there are going to be regulations put on it. And while I understand where they're coming with, where they want the game to be more inclusive, I don't feel like that's going to have any sort of major effect. So I am hoping that they are going to let these clubs sort of run themselves the way that they see fit. I think it would be best for all clubs involved. Now, let's get onto NPL qualification, because what is really interesting is some of the sort of, phrases that they're throwing around regarding actual NPL qualification. Because while it seems simple that the top ranked NPL team at the end of the year will qualify for the Australian Championship, there's actually just a little bit more underneath that we need to address. Subject to meeting compliance requirements, the 2025 men's premiers from their respective NPL competitions shall be eligible to represent the member federation in the Australian Championship. In the case that a foundation club finishes as the 2025 NPL men's premier, or the club that finishes as premier fails to comply with compliance requirements, the slot shall be awarded to the next highest placed non-foundation club. Now, while that sounds fair enough, you don't necessarily want any NPL clubs that don't meet the necessary requirements to be able to compete on a national stage like this, representing their respective foundation. You do have to sort of look at how Football Australia are going to be enforcing this, and what sort of categories are they enforcing this on? Is it on budget? Is it on spending on players? Is it on facilities? Are they able to cope with travel costs? And is any of this going to be helped by a Football West, a Football Queensland, a Football South Australia, a Football Northern New South Wales, a Football Tasmania even? What are the sort of criteria that we are looking at when judging these actual teams on whether or not they are eligible? NST eligibility criteria is outlined in all NPL competition regulations from 2025, noting Football Australia reserves the right to make determinations regarding any aspect of the awarding of the Australian Championship slots. This unique structure ensures that the Australian Championship remains inclusive, aspirational, and representative of the national football landscape. Now, you may ask, Alex, this is great news. We're finally getting a national second division. Why are you so pessimistic about it? There's a couple of reasons. Now, mostly it's because I can just see a few problems arising from the current structure and how clubs are meant to qualify. For example, my number one concern is if you have an A-League club's academy team that qualifies for the tournament, that is going to be a bit of a problem. And I'll tell you why. Now, already we have these Australian clubs that have very good NPL teams. Obviously, you have some clubs that don't exactly perform that well. Macarthur, Newcastle, Perth Glory, for example. But you do have clubs that are performing really well. Really, really well. Now, I don't expect any A-League Academy clubs to make it, but it does raise the question of what happens if it does happen. I think it's just going to cause a lot of unrest, especially if you do see a Sydney FC representing, New South Wales NPL, or you do see a Brisbane Roar representing Football Queensland. It's just something that I don't want to be seeing. And while I certainly hope that they will meet all requirements necessary to participate in the tournament, I would like to see this competition be made exclusively for clubs that are outside of the A-League. I don't want to see this becoming a regular thing where we are risking having these A-League clubs and their academy teams actually making it into the Australian Championship. That's not going to be a good start for anyone, and I think it really takes away from the whole aspect of this really being about local football. Because let's remember, the only reason we've ever wanted a national second division, well, there's a couple of reasons. One is the production of better Australian talents and providing more opportunity to young players. But another serious one is that we really wanted to go back to connecting the local game to the A-League and providing a lot of these clubs an opportunity to actually get to that sort of level. There are plenty of big NPL clubs from all regions of Australia that have had those abilities to be able to take on the big sides. You look at clubs from NPL Victoria absolutely dominating certain A-League teams in their games in the Australia Cup. South Melbourne have been great for years. Moreton City, a not massive team out of Queensland, managed to knock Perth Glory out of the Australia Cup after the Glory knocked out Brisbane and Melbourne City. So there are certainly these NPL teams that can compete, and I do want to see that on a more national stage, and I'm glad that we're starting to get the first steps to that sort of promotion relegation league format that we were indeed looking for. When that essentially does happen, I do want the Australian Championship to stick around, but as a way for NPL clubs to get promoted and relegated from the National Second Division. I think that's probably what they're going for long term. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I want to keep this about local clubs. Don't allow academy teams from professional teams to make it into the actual Australian Championship because it defeats the whole purpose of bringing this back to the roots of the game. My second problem is regarding the criteria. Now, look, I personally just don't like that Football Australia have the authority to oversee absolutely every detail from these clubs being able to participate because it leaves it up to them, essentially. And look, while I'm not going to go out and accuse Football Australia of corruption or anything like that, I can see this being a possible breeding ground for favoritism, especially if there are any clubs that are sort of teetering on the edge of whether or not they are eligible. This is going to be a big problem. If it will be a problem, it will be a problem in Tasmania, Queensland, South Australia, and Western Australia. Now, there are your sort of big clubs from these states, but this is sort of worrying. And it's worrying to me if you do have any sort of smaller clubs going on a bit of a Cinderella run, winning the league, and then being deemed not eligible. That would be absolutely stupid. I think the decision should be left up to the clubs in compliance and in conversation with Football Australia. But the ultimate decision should be up to the clubs, not necessarily to Football Australia. We've seen plenty of this drama where clubs have applied for opening spots as a foundation club for the NSD and have been outright rejected by Football Australia, and I don't like the fact that we are now giving more power back to Football Australia to sort of determine who and when clubs can enter the Australian Championship. Obviously, the first step is winning your local league, or winning your state's NPL league, should I say. But considering that there are factors outside of that Football Australia aren't exactly disclosing, it doesn't give me that much of a comfortable feeling. And I hope that that's not going to become a factor to increase drama or have any sort of bad sentiment about the Australian Championship going forward. Lastly, I just wanted to touch on what we can expect in the future. Now, the Australian Championship is essentially going to be the first step to a National Second Division, a proper home and away league format. Will the Second Division be called the Australian Championship? I don't think so. And here's why. I think the Australian Championship will be kept around, like I said earlier, as a way for local NPL clubs to eventually be promoted and relegated from the National Second Division. Now, while I think the National Second Division home and away league format will probably come into effect at sometime around maybe 2027, even maybe 2028 at the latest, I don't imagine promotion and relegation will be a thing until at least 2030. Now, promotion relegation is going to be massive for this country. It's going to ensure that owners are taking proper charge of clubs and not accepting mediocrity when it comes to how a club is run. And overall, it's going to be better for the development of Australian football, both financially with a domestic transfer system surely getting added in around the same time, as well as in terms of viewerships, as fans have more reason to actually support their clubs without it becoming stale every year. So while I am happy that this is the first step in the right direction, I want to know where we're going next. Like I said, I imagine is there will be the A League, there will be a B League, which will be the National Second Division, and then there will be the Australian Championship underneath, where clubs will qualify year on year to be able to earn the right to play a promotion relegation playoff match, essentially, against teams from the National Second Division, and that is how we will get promotion, relegation, and a fully tiered league structure all across Australian football. Realistically, clubs from State League, clubs that are amateur, semi-professional, or just downright Sunday League teams can genuinely have a shot at competing in the A-League one day. And that is the dream of Australian football. That is the dream that we've seen all over Europe, and that is a dream that I can see happening maybe sometime in the mid-2030s, but it is something that is still a while away, so let's not jump ahead of ourselves, but it is nice to see Australian football taking a step in the right direction for once. Lads, that's going to be it from me for today. If you have any thoughts on anything I've discussed in this video, make sure you leave them in the comment section below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Are you excited about the new Australian Championship? Are you not excited about it? And do you think that this is a step for Australian football in the right direction? Apart from that, lads, I appreciate you watching to the end of this video if you have made it this far. Until the next time, I'll catch you later.